This is the story of Clive Joseph Doyle, an Australian immigrant, a branch Davidian, and one of the few survivors of the Waco tragedy. Born in Melbourne in 1941, Doyle's life would intersect with a religious movement and a national crisis that defined a generation. He moved to the United States in the 1960s, rose to prominence inside the branch Davidians, survived the April 19, 1993 fire, helped rebuild at Mount Carmel, and died in 2022. His beginnings were humble, raised in Melbourne by a single mother and trained in trades before faith redirected his path. Doyle worked as a printer and later sought a new life in America. By 1964, he had moved to Waco, joining a community rooted in the Davidian Seventh-day Adventist tradition. He became a committed member, later an editor and theological voice inside the movement. The story turns in 1993 when federal agents confronted the Mount Carmel compound, an event that ended in a deadly fire. Doyle would be among 9 survivors of that day. To understand him, we go back to Melbourne, to family, and to faith. This is Clive Doyle's journey. Clive Joseph Doyle was born in Melbourne on the 24th of February, 1941. His mother worked in a garment factory. His father left before he was born. With limited means, Doyle grew up in working-class circumstances and apprenticed in a cabinet shop. An itinerant preacher introduced him and his mother to the Shepherd's Rod, a Davidian splinter group that reshaped their faith. Doyle quit his apprenticeship in 1958 and moved to Tasmania to spread the teachings, eventually raising funds to relocate to Waco in 1964. He cemented his life around the Mount Carmel community for decades to come. In later years, Doyle edited Shekinah and helped shape Lois Roden's theological work, often debating the nature of the Holy Spirit. He argued for a feminine representation of the Spirit and became a recognized voice among followers. His background in printing and editing gave him an important role in communicating doctrine. The 1980s brought internal conflicts. Disputes over leadership led Doyle to briefly leave the group at times. Tensions between leaders like George Roden and David Koresh altered the community's path. By 1990, Doyle worked for the U.S. Census and held various jobs while remaining tied to the Davidians. He had 2 daughters, Karen and Sherry. Both would later be linked in tragic ways to the movement and its leader. Sherry Doyle, born 1974, died in the April 19th fire. Karen lived separately, but remained connected to the community. Karen later died in an unrelated crash in 2018. Further losses in a life marked by grief. All roads lead to 1993, the siege that would test Doyle and the community. He was inside Mount Carmel when federal agents arrived. What followed is a complex and disputed history, a siege, a fire, and a narrative that still divides opinion today. On February 28, 1993, ATF agents attempted a raid. Shots were exchanged and 4 people inside the compound were killed that day. Doyle helped make early burials in the storm shelter, improvising in desperate circumstances. He later recounted finding wounded members and trying to aid them. Negotiations stretched for 51 days. Doyle maintained contact with negotiators at times, seeking information about family and safety. He recalled being promised messages from loved ones and dealing with uncertainty inside. Hope and fear coexisted within the walls of Mount Carmel. On April 19th, after tear gas was introduced, fires broke out. Smoke and flames filled the building. Doyle grabbed a gas mask and layers to protect himself. His hands sustained severe burns during the escape. He and a small group escaped through a breach in the chapel wall amid chaos and flames. Doyle was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. He required skin grafts and months of recovery, both physically and emotionally. He faced charges related to the siege, but was acquitted in 1994. In 1999, Doyle and survivors rebuilt a chapel on the Mount Carmel site, an act of remembrance and resilience. He participated in anniversary services and maintained ties with surviving members. Volunteers and supporters helped restore the site and its memory. Doyle publicly rejected violence as a form of honorizing Waco. He condemned the Oklahoma City bombing and worried about extremist appropriation of the siege. In 2012, he published his memoir, offering oral histories and reflections on the events and faith that shaped him. Scholars and survivors have since used his accounts to understand what happened inside Mount Carmel. Doyle lived in Waco for decades after the siege, working modest jobs and tending to the memories of those lost. He remained faithful to his beliefs and to the memory of his family and fellow Davidians.